I am Valerie, 38 years old, and just last night the glittering gala meant to celebrate my marketing empire became the darkest chapter of my life. Everything I'd worked tirelessly to build, my reputation, my marriage, and even my sense of self, imploded in a single moment. A cruel and ironic twist of fate. My company, Aurora Marketing Solutions, had grown quietly but fiercely beneath everyone's radar, becoming a silent powerhouse in the industry. Every success, every new contract signed was achieved in shadows, away from my family's prying, judgmental eyes. For years I'd told myself the secrecy was practical. It avoided unnecessary scrutiny and preserved the purity of my ambition. But deep down, I knew the real reason was far simpler and far sadder. I was afraid they'd dismiss my achievements, just as they'd dismissed me my entire life. My parents, Judith and Ron, had always treated success as a singular, rigid concept: wealth, prestige, marriage into the right social circles. My younger sister Shelby was their golden child, charismatic, beautiful, effortlessly manipulative. They celebrated her every conventional milestone: high school prom queen, a well-placed internship thanks to family connections, and eventually her perfectly manicured marriage to a suitably wealthy husband. Each event was memorialized in endless photographs, showcased prominently in their living room like trophies. Meanwhile, my accomplishments were consistently met with a bored shrug or polite but empty praise. Graduating top of my class? A brief mention over dinner. Landing my first major contract independently? Barely an acknowledgement, overshadowed by Shelby announcing her first pregnancy. I quickly learned to stop expecting recognition or praise. Their indifference taught me resilience, yes, but it also planted seeds of insecurity, quietly undermining every success. Still, I persisted, determined to carve my own path. I married Mason at 29, quietly, without fanfare. He wasn't exactly my parents' idea of an ideal match. Too reserved, too introspective, but he was mine, and for a time our quiet happiness felt like victory. We bought a cozy home in a leafy neighborhood, hosted intimate dinners with genuine friends, and I gradually allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd escaped the suffocating grasp of my upbringing. But appearances, I now realize, can be desperately misleading. It was precisely my secretive success and carefully crafted independence that became my greatest vulnerability. My need to prove myself privately meant I never let my family see who I'd become. They didn't know about my business acumen, my rapidly growing client list, or even that Aurora had secured the most important merger in its history. That deal, poised to elevate my company into national prominence, was supposed to be my crowning achievement, my moment to finally reveal everything. Instead, last night's charity gala, hosted in Aurora's name and meticulously planned down to the last detail, turned into an unimaginable nightmare. I stood on the glittering stage, about to announce our groundbreaking merger, feeling both nervous excitement and long overdue pride. But just as I reached for the microphone, my father stood abruptly from his table, his voice booming with arrogant authority. "Before Valerie embarrasses herself further, there's something we need to discuss." A hush swept through the elegant crowd. Mason shifted uneasily beside me, eyes fixed on his shoes, refusing to meet my gaze. My stomach twisted violently. In a cold, clear voice, Ron announced that Mason had been involved with Shelby for years, and my parents, obsessed with status and reputation, had not only known but encouraged their betrayal, convinced Shelby was better suited to Mason's rising prominence. Gasps echoed around me, followed by whispers and pitiful stares. Shelby sat with a chillingly smug expression, utterly unrepentant, her diamond ring glittering obscenely under the lights. Mason finally raised his eyes to mine, apologetic yet disturbingly indifferent, and whispered, "You always put work first, Valerie. Shelby, she understands me." Humiliation burned through me, hot and nauseating, but beneath it stirred something else, a raw, defiant anger. "You should have thanked her," Shelby added sweetly from her seat, sipping champagne. "I gave Mason the attention he deserved. Clearly, you couldn't." A ripple of hushed amusement came from Shelby's table of admirers, always eager for drama, indifferent to decency. Yet, in that brutal moment, I didn't crumble as they expected. Something inside me cracked wide open instead, letting in fierce clarity. I met Shelby's gaze steadily, my voice surprisingly calm. "Thank you for clarifying exactly who you are, Shelby. You've saved me from years of delusion." My words hung sharply in the air, startling the crowd into stunned silence. But before I tell you exactly what happened next, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever overcome something monumental for your family, because you have no idea what I'm capable of once my illusion of family shattered forever. In the aftermath of that humiliating evening, memories surfaced relentlessly. Raw, painful snapshots of a lifetime spent in invisibility. I'd always thought I was protecting myself by staying hidden, by achieving quietly, away from my family's stifling judgment. But the stark truth was that invisibility had become my silent ally and my greatest wound. Growing up, I learned quickly that nothing I did would ever measure up in the eyes of Judith and Ron. As early as I could remember, they elevated Shelby onto a pedestal, crowning her queen of our family dynamic. Shelby was always the beautiful one, the charming one, the one who effortlessly fit into every social setting my parents deemed important. From ballet recitals to school pageants, Shelby's achievements adorned our home like shrines, photographs framed meticulously, carefully polished trophies of her conventional triumphs. Meanwhile, I stood quietly in her shadow, observing, absorbing, becoming fluent in the silent language of invisibility. At 14, when I brought home a first-place trophy from a regional science fair, something I had poured weeks into, I proudly presented it to my mother. Judith had glanced at it dismissively, murmuring something vaguely encouraging before immediately pivoting to Shelby, who had just received an invitation to the junior prom from the star quarterback. "Oh, Shelby," she'd cooed, radiant with delight. "You truly are the golden girl." My trophy had ended up tucked away on a dusty bookshelf, overshadowed by a dozen sparkling tiaras and ribbons that commemorated Shelby's endless parade of social victories. By 17, my report cards brimmed with straight A's, but when I mentioned applying for scholarships, Ron barely looked up from his newspaper. "Valerie, college is good, I suppose, but have you thought about a finishing school? Your sister is going, and it's essential for social connections." Shelby, of course, never considered college a priority, preferring instead to navigate her life through charm and connections rather than hard work. And my parents encouraged her every step of the way, convinced that charm and beauty were currency far more valuable than brains or effort. It was during those painful teenage years, filled with isolation and quiet disappointment, that I made a promise to myself. If my family couldn't see me, if they insisted on ignoring who I truly was, I'd build something so substantial, so undeniable, that one day they would have no choice but to acknowledge. And that's exactly what I did. College became my refuge, a place to rebuild my identity free from my family's oppressive expectations. I studied business, marketing, psychology, subjects that fascinated me and helped me understand the hidden motivations. My professors recognized my potential, mentoring and encouraging me in ways my family never had. Their validation, though different from the emotional warmth I'd always craved, bolstered my confidence, reminding me I wasn't merely Shelby's overlooked older sister. I had value of my own. After graduation, instead of returning home, I moved to the city and quietly founded Aurora Marketing Solutions from the cramped living room of my modest apartment. My first clients were small local businesses, startups with limited budgets but boundless enthusiasm. My relentless drive and creativity helped them thrive, and word spread quickly. Soon, larger companies sought me out, intrigued by my fresh perspectives and the personal, authentic touch I brought to every campaign. Still, I kept my victories hidden from Judith, Ron, and Shelby, fearful their indifference or outright dismissal would poison the pure joy of my accomplishment. Even after marrying Mason, who seemed supportive at first, I guarded my professional life closely. I'd learned early on that vulnerability only invited disappointment. So I shared my deepest victories and struggles with no one but my most trusted colleagues and closest. Yet, despite my caution, the isolation eventually became too familiar. At family gatherings, I watched Shelby effortlessly charm every room, her flawless life on perfect display. Mason would watch too, captivated by the spectacle she created, laughing a bit louder, smiling a bit longer whenever Shelby entered the room. I'd attributed it to her undeniable charisma, overlooking the deeper, uglier reality behind his fascination. Last night's gala had shattered that illusion entirely. Now replaying those memories, I recognized patterns I'd willingly ignored. Mason's distant gaze when I spoke about work, his unexplained late nights, the casual disregard he often showed for our life together, they weren't mere annoyances but flashing red signs I'd chosen not to see. Shelby had always thrived on attention, and Mason, craving admiration in ways I'd failed to provide, had willingly stepped into her orbit. The revelation hurt deeply, not only because of the betrayal itself, but because I had allowed myself to remain invisible in my own marriage. My parents had reinforced Shelby's superiority, but I had internalized it, believing somehow that my quiet strength wasn't enough to keep Mason's love. Now, I stood at a painful crossroads, forced to confront not only the betrayal, but also the lingering echoes of my invisibility. If I wanted to reclaim my life, to step fully into the light, I needed to shed the protective cloak I'd hidden behind for so long. I had built a life in shadows. It was finally time to live in the open. My journey out of the shadows began years earlier with a single, transformative, aha moment. A moment born out of exhaustion, frustration, and a fierce determination to prove myself. That pivotal night, late in my cramped city apartment surrounded by scattered notes and a half-empty coffee mug, the idea for Aurora Marketing Solutions crystallized. I'd spent months freelancing for companies that didn't fully appreciate my ideas or recognize my value. The tipping point came when a particularly dismissive client had thrown away weeks of carefully prepared strategy simply because he couldn't accept guidance from someone young and female. His condescending smile and curt dismissal, "Valerie, it's cute that you're ambitious, but we've always done things a certain way," lit a fire inside me unlike any I'd felt before. That night, fueled by a mix of adrenaline, caffeine, and sheer indignation, I outlined a radical new marketing strategy, one that didn't rely on tired cliches or empty flash, but instead leveraged genuine storytelling and emotional connection. My hands flew across my keyboard, passion pouring into every sentence. By sunrise, I had a full business plan, a pitch, and a name for my company. Aurora, a symbol of hope, new beginnings, and undeniable brilliance that shines brightest after darkness. Launching Aurora was far from easy. Every step felt like a battle, not just against market skepticism, but also against my own ingrained fears of failure. Without family support or a financial safety net, every contract mattered. Each victory was sweet, each setback painful. But I pressed forward, driven by the unwavering belief that authenticity and integrity mattered, that what I had to offer was different, valuable, and necessary. Aurora's breakthrough came quietly yet powerfully, with an unexpected phone call one ordinary afternoon. It was Marcus Fenton, CEO of a growing socially conscious startup called Greenwave, looking for fresh branding ideas. "We've heard good things," he said simply. "You seem to understand people, Valerie. Can you help us?" My pulse quickened with excitement and nerves. Greenwave wasn't just another client. They represented the type of company I'd always envisioned aligning Aurora with. Ethical, innovative, committed to genuine connection. I threw myself into the project, conducting interviews, immersing myself in Greenwave's vision, and eventually developing a campaign that deeply resonated with their audience. When the campaign launched, its success was immediate and undeniable. Sales surged, social media buzzed, and suddenly, Aurora Marketing Solutions was no longer just a name whispered among insiders. It became recognized publicly as a rising star in the marketing industry. Yet, even in that moment of triumph, I hesitated to tell my family. Fearful of their indifference or criticism, I hid the news, savoring it privately, sharing the victory only with my colleagues and close friends. My company expanded quickly, driven by relentless demand for our authentic, story-driven approach. We landed contracts with more prominent businesses and reputable nonprofits, each project another building block in my carefully guarded empire. I hired talented, passionate people who became my family in ways my biological one had never attempted. They celebrated every victory, commiserated every setback, and valued the quiet but impactful work we did. Together, we were building something extraordinary. Then came the merger, the opportunity that would transform Aurora into an industry giant. Negotiations had stretched out over months, carefully navigating delicate terms. When we finally sealed the deal, it was surreal, an achievement beyond anything I'd imagined possible when I first sketched my business plan years earlier. Ironically, it was my success with Aurora that pushed me to organize the charity gala, the same event that ended in crushing humiliation. I'd wanted it to be my quiet but undeniable statement, a testament to my hard work, independence, and vision. My family was invited as a subtle challenge, a quiet invitation to finally see the woman I'd become, beyond their narrow, dismissive perceptions. But now, in the painful clarity of hindsight, I realized I'd set myself up for disaster. My parents never valued authentic achievements. They valued appearance, status, and social conformity. Shelby, of course, thrived in that environment, effortlessly manipulating circumstances to her advantage. Mason had drifted toward her orbit, seeking validation I hadn't provided. My quiet, sincere success had never stood a chance against their superficial world. The revelation hurt, yet it also provided a strange liberation. For so long I'd fought for acknowledgement from people incapable of appreciating who I genuinely was. I'd allowed their blindness to shape my identity, hiding in shadows because I feared their rejection. But Aurora, built entirely by my own hand, was undeniable proof that my worth had never depended on their validation. Last night's public humiliation had been brutal, but it also shattered the chains I'd unknowingly worn for years. Their betrayal revealed who they were: cruel, superficial, and deeply insecure. But it also forced me to finally see myself clearly: powerful, resilient, and capable of extraordinary achievement. With Aurora standing firm beneath me, stronger than ever despite the emotional chaos, I was finally ready to step fully into the light. No more hiding, no more quiet victories in the shadows. It was time to claim my place unapologetically and without fear. Today was the day Aurora Marketing Solutions would finalize the merger that could catapult us into national prominence. It was a moment I'd dreamed of, one I'd worked toward tirelessly for years. Yet the lingering sting from last night's betrayal cast a dark shadow over my excitement. I stood alone in my pristine office, staring through floor-to-ceiling windows at a city bustling below, feeling strangely disconnected from the success around me. This was supposed to be the best day of my life. Instead, memories of Shelby's smug, cruel smile and Mason's cowardly, downcast eyes clawed at me, stealing away any joy I might have felt. I'd woken up to an empty house, Mason gone, presumably back to Shelby's welcoming arms, and the echo of my parents' disdainful voices still ringing in my ears. The world I'd quietly built seemed suddenly fragile, tainted by the very people I'd tried so hard to prove myself to. Yet, even in that bitter clarity, the merger felt more significant than ever. It wasn't just a business deal. It was proof that I could thrive independently, proof that my family's twisted values held no power over me. I'd built Aurora from nothing, nurtured its growth with tireless devotion, and tonight, at the official signing ceremony, I would celebrate it openly, surrounded by those who truly saw and valued my worth. But first, there was one last painful obligation I couldn't escape: tonight's dreaded annual family dinner. It was a tradition Judith insisted on, a glossy, uncomfortable event held at their sprawling estate, attended by family friends, distant relatives, and carefully chosen business connections. I'd been dreading it for weeks, but now the prospect was downright nauseating. Yet, some stubborn, defiant part of me refused to hide. They had wounded me deeply, but I refused to let them believe they'd broken me. As evening approached, I reluctantly chose my outfit, a sleek, elegant dress, subtly powerful, a reminder that I wasn't who they believed me to be. As I applied my makeup, masking the fatigue etched into my features, I steeled myself against whatever fresh humiliation awaited. The Valerie who had quietly accepted their dismissiveness was fading quickly, replaced by someone stronger, angrier, and infinitely more determined. When I arrived at my parents' palatial home, anxiety tightened my chest. Every detail felt orchestrated to reinforce our family's toxic hierarchy: Shelby, glittering like a jewel at the center, Judith and Ron smiling graciously as guests admired their tasteful wealth, and me, expected to play my usual role as the overlooked afterthought. But tonight, that role felt suffocating, unwearable. I walked in, head held high, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. Shelby spotted me first, offering a saccharine smile, tinged with arrogance. Beside her, Mason stood stiffly, visibly uncomfortable yet clearly committed to his choice. Judith approached me briskly, eyes coldly assessing my appearance before offering a perfunctory hug. "Valerie, darling, she said with forced warmth, clearly aware others watched. "How wonderful you could still join us, considering everything." Considering everything? Her words felt like a dagger wrapped in silk. I smiled back, equally false, refusing to show weakness. "Of course, Mother, I wouldn't miss this for the world." Dinner began predictably. Small talk laced with veiled insults, each casual comment carefully designed to undermine. Judith praised Shelby's volunteer work extravagantly, barely glancing in my direction. Ron enthusiastically discussed Mason's recent promotion, conveniently overlooking that his success was tied entirely to Shelby's influence and my quiet, steady support over the years. Each compliment they lavished upon Shelby felt deliberately exaggerated, a subtle punishment for my refusal to conform to their expectations. Still, I held my tongue, quietly observing the grotesque performance around me, anger simmering beneath my calm facade. Guests offered polite, cautious smiles, clearly sensing something was off, yet unwilling to risk offending their influential hosts. Mason, seated next to Shelby, avoided eye contact, clearly unsettled, but he'd chosen his path, and my sympathy for him had long since evaporated. Midway through dinner, Judith cleared her throat dramatically, silencing the room. "We have some news to share," she announced grandly, her eyes briefly meeting mine with chilly defiance. "Given recent developments, we've decided it's best for our family to move forward without Valerie. Unfortunately, her choices no longer align with our family's values or vision." Gasps rippled around the table, guests shifting uncomfortably. My chest tightened, humiliation flooding through me, but beneath it surged anger. They'd gone too far, publicly casting me aside as if I were disposable, easily erased. Judith continued smoothly, voice devoid of genuine emotion. "We wish Valerie the best, of course, but family unity requires shared goals." Shelby smiled serenely, enjoying every second, her hand placed possessively on Mason's arm. Mason flinched slightly, the gesture small but telling. This wasn't the life he'd expected either, but his silence spoke volumes. Yet, even as my family announced my exile, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed sharply, an urgent, insistent interruption. Glancing down discreetly, I saw a message from my assistant Zoe in bold capitals. "Merger confirmed early. Aurora is officially national. News going live in minutes." My heart skipped violently, adrenaline replacing humiliation instantly. In that single startling moment, everything changed. They thought they could break me, reduce me to nothing, but my silent empire was finally ready to roar. My phone trembled gently in my palm, the message blazing bright, surreal. Aurora Marketing Solutions, my quiet rebellion, my secret triumph, was officially national. News of our merger, once planned for a grand reveal, was now racing into the world like wildfire. Amidst the hollow murmurs of sympathy and judgment swirling around my parents' dinner table, a bold, unexpected clarity sliced through my humiliation. Yet, this stunning victory felt surreal, distant, almost separate from the cruel performance unfolding around me. I glanced up from my phone, suddenly aware of the sharp silence in the room, every eye fixed curiously upon me, hungry for drama. My mother raised an eyebrow, suspicion dancing in her gaze. Shelby's smile faltered slightly, sensing perhaps that something had shifted, though her grip on Mason remained tight, possessive. "Valerie?" Judith asked crisply, annoyance threading through her voice. "Is something more pressing than your family happening?" The room tittered softly at her sarcasm, a quiet chorus enjoying my discomfort. Anger surged anew, hot and righteous, but I forced calmness, slowly placing my phone back onto the table. "No," I said evenly, my voice clear yet controlled. "I was just reminded how differently we define family." Judith's lips pressed into a thin line, eyes narrowing dangerously. Beside her, Ron leaned back, eyes gleaming with amusement. "Always so dramatic, Valerie," he chuckled dismissively. "We're merely stating facts." Shelby took the cue, leaning forward slightly, eyes sparkling cruelly. "Honestly, Valerie, we're worried about you. Mason mentioned how absorbed you've become with your business, neglecting the things that really matter. Family, relationships, love." The casual venom in her words stung deeply, not just because of Mason's betrayal, but because she'd known exactly where to strike. Shelby always excelled at weaponizing truths, carefully shaping them to inflict maximum damage. My quiet ambition, once my greatest pride, was now twisted into a supposed flaw, a personal failing. My heart pounded furiously, anger pooling hotly behind my eyes. Mason avoided looking at me, guilt evident, shoulders hunched slightly. I'd loved him deeply once, quietly, fiercely, but now all I saw was weakness, cowardice, a man easily manipulated by shallow validation. Taking a slow breath, I forced myself to speak calmly. It's fascinating how easily you twist ambition into neglect, Shelby, but I suppose you're accustomed to getting attention without truly earning it. An audible gasp spread around the table, a scandalized thrill rippling through the guests. Judith bristled visibly, indignation hardening her posture. Shelby's eyes flashed, anger replacing her controlled amusement. "Careful, Valerie," Judith warned, her voice deceptively soft. "Shelby has shown nothing but concern." "Concern?" I laughed softly, bitterness lacing each syllable. "Is that what you call years of betrayal? Concern? Mason, is Shelby's kind of concern the attention you've been missing?" Mason flinched visibly, his face coloring deeply. Shelby tightened her grip on his arm, a subtle but clear display of control. "I simply gave Mason what you refused to," she said sweetly, her smile returning, sharp and dangerous. "Attention, affection, a family who actually appreciates him." Her words hung heavily, intentionally cutting deep, yet in that painful clarity came liberation. Shelby's taunts no longer held power over me. I saw them for what they were, empty manipulations from someone desperate for validation. My strength had never come from their approval. It had always resided within my quiet determination, my willingness to build something lasting and meaningful from scratch. "You and Mason deserve each other," I responded calmly, my voice steady, devoid of bitterness. "You both thrive on superficial validation. Congratulations on finding exactly what you deserve." Shelby's cheeks flushed angrily, clearly not expecting this calm defiance. Judith straightened sharply, eyes blazing with restrained fury. "Enough, Valerie, you've made your point." "No, Mother," I said quietly, firmly, the words steady and deliberate. "You've made yours, loud and clear. You value appearances, status, and power over honesty and integrity. I've always been a misfit in this family, never fitting your narrow expectations. But I'm finally realizing that's not a weakness, it's my strength." The table fell eerily silent, my words reverberating powerfully, uncomfortable truths finally exposed. Guests shifted uneasily, sensing something significant unfolding. My parents exchanged tense glances, uncertain how to respond. Shelby's composure fractured slightly, anger simmering beneath her carefully polished surface. In that tense silence, my phone buzzed again sharply, insistent. Another text flashed urgently, this time from Zoe, my assistant, brief but impactful. "Press already picking up the merger. Congratulations, Valerie, you did it." Reading those words, strength flooded through me, washing away lingering shame, leaving only fierce clarity. I stood slowly, smoothly, each movement deliberate. Guests watched curiously, whispers rising, anticipation building. "Excuse me," I announced calmly, confidently meeting each shocked gaze around the table. "Unlike some, I actually have meaningful work to do tonight." Judith rose sharply, disbelief tightening her features. "Valerie, this is unacceptable." "No," I said evenly, holding her gaze firmly. "What's unacceptable is pretending that appearances matter more than integrity. I'm done living by your rules." Without another word I turned, walking steadily toward the exit, my heels clicking confidently against polished marble floors. As I left the dining room, a strange, exhilarating sense of freedom enveloped me. The family I desperately tried to please no longer held power over my self-worth. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my own narrative, and for the first time, I felt undeniably powerful, utterly unbreakable. I stepped out into the night air, cool and bracing, feeling the tightness in my chest finally ease. My heels clicked sharply down the stone driveway toward my car, echoing defiantly in the heavy silence I'd left behind. Each step felt lighter, the oppressive weight of their expectations finally slipping away. Behind me, the house loomed brightly lit, elegant and imposing, but now undeniably hollow. As I reached for my car door, the front door of my parents' house opened abruptly, spilling harsh light across the gravel driveway. Shelby hurried out, her footsteps quick and sharp, voice high and brittle. "Valerie, wait!" I paused, my back still turned to her, hand gripping the cool metal handle of my car door. "For what, Shelby?" My voice felt steadier than ever before, calm, resolved. "Another insult? Another carefully constructed humiliation?" She hesitated briefly, clearly thrown off by my calmness. Shelby thrived on drama, feeding off emotional chaos. My newfound steadiness unsettled her, taking away the control she'd always effortlessly wielded. "I didn't plan for it to be this way," she said, suddenly softer, a calculated vulnerability slipping into her voice. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Mason and we fell in love, Valerie." I turned slowly, facing her fully, noting how fragile and false her act appeared beneath the stark porch lights. "Love?" I laughed softly, shaking my head. "You don't know the first thing about real love, Shelby. Real love isn't built on betrayal or manipulation. You and Mason found validation in each other's vanity, nothing more." She flinched visibly, anger flickering briefly across her carefully composed expression. "You're always so judgmental, Valerie. You look down on everyone who doesn't share your narrow view of success." "Narrow?" I repeated gently, almost amused by her audacity. "You and our parents defined success by status and appearance. You spent your life chasing validation, while I built something authentic, something meaningful. I'm not the one who chose narrowness." Shelby stood quietly, visibly shaken by my unwavering clarity. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and raw. Finally, she drew herself up, her eyes glittering with renewed defiance. "It doesn't matter. You've been cut off. Officially. You're no longer part of this family, Valerie. Everything you've built, you did alone, and now you'll stay alone." Her words were sharp, designed to wound, but this time they rang hollow, empty threats echoing against my newly solid self-assurance. "Cutting me off?" I smiled softly, almost genuinely grateful. "Shelby, being officially out of this family is the greatest gift you could ever give me." She stared, clearly stunned by my sincerity. "You're bluffing. You can't pretend losing your family doesn't hurt." "Oh, it hurt," I admitted easily, "but not in the way you intended. Losing illusions always hurts, but waking up feels amazing. What hurts most is seeing how small your world really is, how shallow and empty. You never had to tear me down, Shelby. I was never your competition. You did that yourself." Her face flushed angrily, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. "You think you're so superior, Valerie. Just wait, you'll regret this." "Regret?" I asked softly, stepping closer, my voice low, certain. "The only regret I have is waiting this long to walk away. You and Mason deserve the life you're choosing, built on insecurity and falsehood. But make no mistake, you're right about one thing. I built everything alone. And now, alone or not, I'm finally free." Shelby opened her mouth ready to retort, but I raised my hand gently, silencing her with quiet authority. "Goodbye, Shelby. Enjoy your victory, it's emptier than you know." With that, I opened my car door decisively, sliding behind the wheel, the leather seat cool and grounding beneath me. In my rearview mirror, Shelby stood motionless, her facade finally fractured. The carefully maintained mask of confidence had slipped, revealing the bitter, insecure woman beneath. Driving away, I felt no sadness, only relief. Their betrayal had been designed to destroy me, yet ironically it had freed me instead. Judith and Ron had chosen Shelby over me. Mason had chosen shallow validation, but I had chosen myself. They'd wanted to see me crumble beneath their cruelty, but their rejection had only solidified my resolve. The streets blurred by in quiet rhythm, each passing street lamp illuminating my path forward, clear and unhindered. Pulling over briefly, I took out my phone, seeing a flood of congratulatory messages from Zoe and my loyal team at Aurora, each filled with genuine warmth and support. These were my real family, the chosen family I'd built through trust, respect, and authenticity. Finally, my fingers hovered over Mason's contact, a brief sadness flickering through me. I'd believed deeply in our marriage, trusting in quiet love and partnership. But now I understood clearly that Mason had been just another piece of the facade, another empty pursuit of approval I'd mistakenly chased. Deleting his number was unexpectedly easy, swift and freeing. As I tossed the phone gently onto the passenger seat, a profound peace settled warmly within me. I'd lost the illusion of family, the illusion of marriage, but in exchange I'd gained clarity, strength, and the unwavering knowledge of who I truly was. Tonight marked not only the end of my family's control, but the beginning of something far more powerful: my complete, unapologetic independence. Aurora would thrive, and so would I, because this time my success wasn't hidden, it was proudly and boldly mine. The car hummed steadily through the quiet streets, each turn bringing me closer to a home that felt both comfortingly familiar and newly unfamiliar. Mason's absence would leave gaps, spaces filled with silence and memories, But tonight as I drove home alone, those spaces felt lighter, clearer, easier to breathe in. Betrayal had fractured my world, but it also shattered illusions I hadn't realized held me captive. Freedom felt bitter, yet deeply satisfying. My phone buzzed insistently from the passenger seat, breaking the quiet contemplation. Zoe's name flashed urgently on the screen, and I quickly pulled over to answer, sensing this wasn't just another congratulatory message. "Valerie," Zoe's voice crackled through the phone, urgent yet jubilant. "You won't believe what's happening. The merger news broke early, and it's exploded. Every major outlet picked it up. Aurora Marketing Solutions is officially national, trending everywhere. Everyone wants to talk to you. Your phone is going to be ringing non-stop." I leaned back, heart racing, the reality finally sinking in. Aurora, my quiet rebellion, had become an undeniable powerhouse overnight. My secret empire was now shining brilliantly, publicly, without apology. "Valerie?" Zoe asked gently, hearing my silence. "Are you okay?" I let out a slow breath, a smile spreading involuntarily across my face. "Honestly, Zoe, I've never felt better." "Good, because you've earned this," she said warmly. "We've all been waiting to celebrate you." As we hung up, my screen lit up immediately with notifications, a dizzying rush of messages pouring in from media outlets, potential clients, industry peers, recognition and validation flooding in faster than I'd ever imagined possible. For years I'd quietly built Aurora, shielded its successes carefully, afraid to invite scrutiny or dismissal. Now my success was not just public. It was celebrated openly, fiercely, without reservation. I sat back, taking a deep breath, savoring the magnitude of this moment. Despite everything my family had done, despite their calculated cruelty, they'd failed utterly to destroy me. In fact, their betrayal had only strengthened my resolve, amplifying my triumph in ways they could never comprehend. The phone vibrated again, this time a number I recognized immediately, though I hadn't spoken to her in months. My childhood best friend, Sadie. Our busy lives had drifted apart, but she'd always been the one constant who truly saw me, unclouded by family dynamics. I picked up instantly. "Sadie?" Her voice was familiar and comforting, immediately grounding me. "Valerie, I just saw the news. Aurora Marketing is everywhere. I'm so proud of you." Tears pricked my eyes unexpectedly, her sincerity breaking through the emotional armor I'd worn for years. "Thank you, Sadie. You have no idea how much that means right now." "Actually, I might," she said softly, gently. "Shelby reached out earlier, bragging, of course, trying to frame her betrayal as justified. She sounded scared, Valerie. I don't think she expected your success to be this big or so public. You've rattled her." A soft laugh escaped me, surprising yet satisfying. "Good," Sadie chuckled warmly. "You sound different, stronger. I think this might be the best thing that ever happened to you." I smiled into the dark. "I think you're right. For years, I let them dictate how I saw myself, always trying to measure up. Now I realize their validation never mattered. Aurora is mine, built on my terms, and no one can take that away." "Exactly," Sadie said gently, affirming everything I felt. "We're overdue to celebrate. Come over tomorrow. I'll bring wine, you bring the stories." "Deal," I replied, a rush of warmth filling me. Sadie had always seen me clearly, believed in me even when I'd struggled to believe in myself. Her support felt profoundly healing, a true anchor amidst chaos. As I ended the call, my thoughts drifted briefly back to Shelby, Mason, and my parents. They'd likely seen the news by now, shocked by the scope of my hidden success, scrambling to reassess their judgment. I briefly imagined their frantic attempts to spin the story, desperate to claim some credit, to regain control of a narrative they'd discarded so casually. But I refused to give them power, not even in my imagination. Tonight belonged entirely to me, to Aurora, and to the people who'd quietly believed in me all along. Restarting the engine, I continued home, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The city lights flickered gently around me, warm and inviting, illuminating my path forward. Each street passed felt symbolic, a shedding of old pains, of heavy expectations, of toxic family ties that had always restricted me. Pulling into my driveway, my quiet home looked different now. Stronger, safer, entirely mine. Stepping inside, the silence no longer felt empty. Instead, it felt filled with possibilities. Tomorrow, I'd face press interviews, client meetings, and a new public identity. But tonight, in this quiet solitude, I finally allowed myself to acknowledge the depth of my achievement. I poured a glass of wine, toasting silently to Aurora, to independence, and to freedom born from betrayal. Shelby and Mason had thought their cruelty would break me, but instead, they'd freed me from illusions, showing me my true strength. My parents had believed disowning me would ruin me, but it had only unshackled me, letting me rise higher than ever before. As I settled onto my couch, sipping slowly, my phone buzzed once more, displaying a flood of supportive messages. Colleagues, friends, former clients, all sending words of genuine celebration. My chosen family, my real community, had surrounded me, quietly strong all along. Tonight, amidst the aftermath of betrayal, something extraordinary had begun. My hidden world had transformed into undeniable brilliance, and I was finally ready, boldly, fearlessly, to embrace it openly. The morning sunlight streamed gently through the windows, casting warm golden patterns across my bedroom walls. Last night's intense turmoil had given way to a calm certainty, settling deeply within me. Aurora's sudden public triumph felt surreal yet exhilarating, a clear testament that everything I'd quietly built was more powerful than the betrayal intended to break me. As expected, my phone buzzed non-stop from Dawn. Zoe managed most of the press inquiries, calmly shielding me until I was ready. Still, seeing Aurora featured across major headlines and social media felt both validating and slightly overwhelming. I brewed strong coffee, savoring the simple ritual, reminding myself this was what I'd worked toward, quietly but relentlessly, all along. Yet, beneath my steady determination lurked inevitable dread. I knew my parents, and especially Shelby, wouldn't stay quiet. Their desperation to control the narrative would surely send them scrambling back toward me, attempting damage control. I steeled myself, preparing mentally for the inevitable confrontation. It didn't take long. By mid-morning, the buzzer rang, insistent and jarring. Peering through my door's intercom, I sighed heavily at the sight of my parents, flanked protectively by Shelby and Mason, hovering awkwardly behind them. I hesitated briefly, considering refusing outright, but a quiet, confident strength settled into place. No more hiding, I needed to face this openly and fully, once and for all. Opening the door, I stood calmly, waiting for them to speak first. Judith looked slightly rattled, uncertain, while Ron shifted impatiently, eyes glancing around the hallway as though uncomfortable being seen. Shelby, however, wore an expression of forced confidence, clearly believing she could still control the situation. Mason avoided meeting my gaze entirely, shame evident in his lowered eyes. "What brings you here?" I asked softly, clearly, my voice free from any bitterness or hostility. Judith composed herself, offering a brittle smile. "Valerie, sweetheart, we've come to clear things up. Perhaps last night was a misunderstanding." I laughed softly, incredulous. "A misunderstanding? Announcing publicly that I'm no longer part of your family hardly seems vague." She blinked, momentarily thrown. Ron cleared his throat gruffly, stepping forward. "Let's not dramatize, Valerie. Families argue. We just want to set things right." "No," I corrected gently, firmly. "You don't want to set things right. You want to rewrite the story because you're embarrassed by how publicly wrong you were." Shelby stepped in sharply, her voice taking on a saccharine, condescending edge. "Don't be ridiculous, Valerie. You can't honestly think Aurora's little victory means you don't need family. Think about the optics." "Optics," I repeated quietly, tasting the bitterness of the word. "You never cared about family, you cared about reputation. Now that Aurora's national, suddenly I'm worth something again?" Shelby opened her mouth to protest, but Mason interrupted abruptly, surprising everyone. "Valerie, we're sorry. This went further than I ever meant. Shelby, we both got caught up and I regret hurting you." His words hung awkwardly, heavy with sincerity and discomfort. Shelby's eyes widened sharply, shock and fury flashing through her carefully maintained composure. "Mason," she hissed, furious. "No," Mason said firmly, finally raising his eyes to meet mine directly. "Valerie deserves honesty, something none of us gave her." I considered him briefly, acknowledging his honesty while feeling no urge to forgive. "Thank you, Mason, but honesty doesn't erase what you've done." Shelby bristled visibly, anger overtaking her polished facade. "Stop pretending you're morally superior, Valerie. You built your empire alone because no one could stand your self-righteous attitude." My parents shifted uncomfortably, sensing Shelby losing control, yet I stood utterly calm, unmoved by her venom. "No, Shelby, I built Aurora alone because I learned early not to trust people who valued appearances over integrity, like you. She flinched visibly, her eyes narrowing. Judith stepped forward urgently, attempting damage control. Please, Valerie, think practically. We are still your family. Imagine how it looks to the media if we're divided. How it looks, I echoed softly, shaking my head. Still appearances above all else. You're being stubborn, Ron snapped irritably, finally losing patience. You're making a huge mistake cutting us off. No, I replied quietly, evenly. You already cut me off, I'm just accepting it. My parents fell silent, clearly uncertain how to respond. Shelby's shoulders stiffened with mounting fury, while Mason stared quietly at the floor. I finally spoke again, my voice steady and firm, echoing with newfound strength. I spent years quietly hoping you'd see who I truly was, but now I finally see clearly. You never could. And honestly, that's your loss, not mine. Their silence was deeply satisfying, each shocked, uncomfortable face validation that my truth had finally landed. You should leave now, I said gently, stepping back, the doorway wide, inviting them to exit. Judith, clearly rattled by my quiet authority, turned abruptly, marching quickly toward the elevator. Ron followed stiffly, visibly shaken. Shelby hesitated briefly, her confidence shattered, before turning on her heel and storming away angrily, Mason following quietly behind her. Closing the door firmly, I leaned against it, breathing deeply, savoring the newfound peace. I'd faced them without bitterness, without anger, just quiet, honest clarity. My phone buzzed again, Zoe's cheerful message appearing instantly. Ready for interviews? The world wants to meet Aurora's brilliant founder. Smiling gently, I typed back confidently, absolutely, I'm finally ready. My family had chosen rejection, but I had chosen freedom, independence, and authenticity. My quiet empire had transformed into undeniable brilliance, and from here there was only one path forward, bold, unapologetic, and entirely my own. Later that evening, I found myself seated around Sadie's worn oak dining table, laughter and warmth surrounding me like a comforting blanket. Sadie had assembled a small gathering of friends, familiar, genuine faces who had witnessed my journey from a distance yet had always believed in my quiet strength. Here, amid these unpretentious, authentic souls, I felt truly seen and deeply valued for perhaps the first time in my life. Sadie raised her wine glass, smiling warmly, to Valerie, the quiet rebel turned marketing mogul, and to Aurora, a success that was never quiet at all, just patiently waiting to roar. Warm laughter rippled around the table as glasses clinked cheerfully. The sincerity of the moment overwhelmed me, happiness rising unexpectedly, mingled with poignant emotion. These friends weren't dazzled by status or obsessed with optics. They valued sincerity, authenticity, kindness. Here at Sadie's table, real success felt vividly clear. Connection, honesty, and mutual support. Sitting next to me was Elliot, Sadie's gentle yet brilliantly witty husband. Across the table sat Georgia, a spirited entrepreneur who had quietly mentored me during Aurora's uncertain early days, offering guidance without expectation. Beside her was Zoe, my tireless assistant, whose unwavering dedication had turned Aurora's boldest ideas into reality. Each face around the table felt comforting, genuine, a powerful contrast to the cold, calculated gathering at my parents' house the night before. Elliot leaned toward me, eyes twinkling mischievously. So, Valerie, now that Aurora's officially famous, can I get your autograph before you forget the little people? I laughed, warmth spreading through my chest. Elliot, if anyone ever catches me forgetting the people who mattered from the start, you have my permission to stage an intervention. He chuckled gently, his smile softening warmly. Not likely, but you deserve every ounce of recognition coming your way. Seriously, Valerie, it's inspiring. Georgia nodded emphatically, leaning forward earnestly. You never compromised who you were. Aurora's success came from honesty and real storytelling. That's rare, and it matters. Sadie smiled gently, meeting my eyes knowingly. Exactly, you built something real, something authentic, and you did it without losing yourself. Your family may not have seen your worth, but we always did. Zoe, usually quiet and reserved, chimed in, cheeks flushing slightly. Honestly, Valerie, working at Aurora has changed my life. You've shown me what it means to lead with integrity, even when no one's watching. Tears pricked my eyes unexpectedly, gratitude filling me completely. You all have no idea how much your support means right now, I said softly, sincerity evident. especially after everything with my family. Sadie reached across, gently squeezing my hand. Family isn't about blood, Valerie. It's about who shows up when it counts, who genuinely cares. You've got family right here. Her words settled deeply, profoundly comforting. This was my chosen family, genuine and authentic, who had quietly believed in me, even when I'd struggled to believe in myself. Around this modest table, amidst the easy laughter and warm stories, I felt more authentically myself than ever before. After dinner, as plates were cleared and coffee brewed, Georgia leaned closer, her voice gentle yet probing. "How are you really doing, Valerie? Last night couldn't have been easy." I considered her question thoughtfully, feeling surprisingly steady. Honestly, last night was brutal, but it forced me to finally let go of illusions I'd carried for years. It hurt deeply, but it also freed me. Georgia nodded knowingly, her eyes warm with understanding. Family dynamics can be so damaging, but sometimes losing them is exactly what sets you free. Zoe, joining us quietly, added softly, "Aurora became a success because it was your vision, not theirs. You're stronger without them." Sadie approached with coffee, gently placing steaming mugs in front of us, her voice thoughtful. "It's strange, isn't it? Sometimes you have to lose what you thought mattered most to find what really does." The room fell into comfortable silence, each of us considering Sadie's quiet wisdom. My parents, Shelby and Mason, had betrayed and discarded me. Yet in doing so, they'd unintentionally revealed the profound strength I'd always carried quietly within. Now, my chosen family surrounded me, offering true support, kindness, and genuine connection, gifts more valuable than any superficial approval. Later, as guests slowly said goodnight, embracing warmly, promising future gatherings, I felt deeply at peace. Sadie lingered beside me, a quiet, comforting presence. "I'm proud of you," she said softly, squeezing my shoulder gently. "I always knew you were amazing, but now everyone else sees it too." I smiled gently, warmth radiating through me. "Thank you, Sadie. You've always been the family I needed." "Always," she echoed firmly, her eyes full of sincerity. "You deserve this, Valerie. All of it." Driving home later that night, the city lights blurring gently past, I felt utterly different from the woman who had driven these same streets only 24 hours earlier. The painful betrayal had birthed freedom, clarity, strength. My quiet victories, hidden carefully for years, now shone brightly, openly, unapologetically. My biological family had chosen rejection, but tonight had shown me vividly who my true family was. Aurora's success wasn't just about professional achievement, it symbolized personal liberation, authenticity, and the profound strength of choosing my own path. Finally home, I climbed into bed, exhaustion and contentment mingling sweetly. Sleep came gently, unburdened by past hurts, guided by the knowledge that real family wasn't about blood, it was about authenticity, loyalty, and genuine love. And tonight, surrounded by my true family, I felt unquestionably seen, truly loved, and deeply whole. In the weeks that followed, my life began to transform quietly, yet undeniably. Aurora's sudden national prominence brought relentless attention and new opportunities, but something equally important had shifted inside me. My boundaries had solidified. Betrayal had taught me a critical lesson, one I finally embraced fully. I had to protect my energy, my peace, and my authenticity fiercely. Gone were the days when my sense of self-worth hinged on validation from others, particularly my family. Instead, I constructed clear and intentional boundaries, ensuring no one could undermine my happiness again. This new sense of control was liberating, a powerful reclamation of my own narrative. One morning, seated in my sunny office, Zoe appeared gently at my door, hesitating slightly before knocking. "Valerie, you have an unexpected visitor downstairs. Mason wants to speak with you." I wasn't sure. I paused briefly, surprised yet calm. My first instinct was to refuse, but a quiet inner voice urged me forward. Mason no longer had the power to wound me, yet perhaps closure could bring peace. "Send him up," I replied gently, grateful for Zoe's protective instincts. She nodded supportively, returning moments later, escorting Mason cautiously inside. He stepped forward hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable. His posture was hunched, eyes tired, voice subdued. "Valerie, thank you for seeing me." "Mason," I greeted softly, gesturing calmly for him to sit. "What brings you here?" He took a slow breath, visibly nervous. "I came to apologize, properly this time, for everything, for Shelby, your family, my cowardice. I don't expect forgiveness, but you deserve to hear how deeply I regret hurting you. I studied him thoughtfully, noticing the sincerity etched across his face. Yet, this encounter wasn't about forgiveness. It was about boundaries, understanding, and closure. Thank you, I replied simply, gently. I appreciate you coming here, Mason. It takes courage to acknowledge mistakes. He nodded, eyes downcast. I got swept up, Valerie, caught in Shelby's validation, your parents' approval. It felt intoxicating, but it was hollow, empty. You deserved so much better. I did, I agreed gently, feeling surprisingly calm, but now I'm stronger because of it. Betrayal hurt, but it also freed me from needing validation from anyone else, especially people who never valued me for who I was. Mason nodded solemnly, clearly affected. Aurora's success, it's incredible. You built something extraordinary. I wish I'd supported you better. Thank you, Mason, I replied softly, genuinely. I wish you peace too, but my boundaries are clear now. There won't be any going back, not even friendship. This is closure, nothing more. His eyes lifted sharply, clearly startled by my gentle yet firm clarity. Of course, I understand. You deserve peace. After a brief silence, Mason stood quietly, offering a subdued farewell. As the door closed behind him, I exhaled slowly, feeling the last threads of uncertainty slipping away. I had faced him without anger, without resentment, just gentle, definitive clarity. Later that afternoon, my parents attempted contact through Zoe, leaving carefully polite voicemails about reconciliation, attempting to leverage Aurora's success to regain status. Yet their pleas rang hollow, transparently desperate. I composed a short, polite email, its message unequivocal. I wish you well, but moving forward, my boundaries are firm. Please respect my decision. Their response was immediate, a mixture of indignation and bewilderment, but it no longer affected me. Their approval was irrelevant now. My success was mine alone, proudly independent from their narrow values. Over the following days, I took concrete steps to solidify these new boundaries. Aurora's media presence expanded quickly, and I hired additional trusted staff, carefully cultivating a team dedicated to authenticity and integrity. Zoe became my executive director, her quiet competence invaluable. I delegated confidently, learning to trust others while guarding my peace vigilantly. My friendships deepened, becoming more intentional, genuine, and fulfilling. Sadie and Georgia visited regularly, their presence grounding me in authenticity, honesty, and mutual respect. Our shared conversations were candid, supportive, free from pretension or judgment. One evening at Sadie's kitchen table, sipping tea comfortably, Georgia leaned forward, eyes sparkling warmly. Valerie, watching you these past weeks has been inspiring. You've transformed. Sadie nodded, smiling warmly. You've built a fortress, gentle yet unbreakable. It suits you. I laughed softly, warmth flooding me. Betrayal taught me to protect myself, but it also showed me who truly deserves my trust. I finally feel secure, grounded, and genuinely happy. Georgia raised her mug thoughtfully. Here's to boundaries and real happiness, long overdue. We clinked mugs gently, the sound soft yet deeply satisfying. My new fortress wasn't about isolating myself, it was about thoughtfully choosing who to welcome inside. The people surrounding me now offered support, encouragement, and authenticity, the true family I'd always longed for. Driving home later, streetlights glowing softly, I felt profoundly peaceful. My boundaries were clear, my strength undeniable, my chosen family steadfast and loyal. Shelby, Mason, and my parents had intended to weaken me, but they'd inadvertently helped me become stronger, more confident, authentically myself. Entering my quiet home, the silence comforting, I felt profoundly grateful. Betrayal had brought pain, yet it had also birthed clarity, resilience, and an unwavering understanding of who deserved space in my life. Aurora's success, once a hidden rebellion, now flourished openly, proudly, symbolic of the fortress I'd quietly but fiercely constructed around my newfound peace. My family had tried to break me, but instead they'd revealed my greatest strength, the power of choosing myself. Months passed, and Aurora's momentum continued to soar, quietly redefining industry standards and firmly establishing itself as a beacon of authentic storytelling. With every milestone, I took intentional steps toward reclaiming my family name, not on their terms, but entirely on my own. As Aurora flourished publicly, I channeled newfound resources into initiatives close to my heart, community-driven campaigns, social advocacy projects, mentorship programs, each designed to uplift, empower, and celebrate genuine connection. My company's success became a platform for positive change, a direct counter to the superficial, status-driven world my family had always prioritized. One crisp autumn afternoon, Zoe knocked gently on my office door, smiling warmly as she stepped inside. "Valerie, I have news. Our mentorship program officially launched today, and the response has been incredible. Hundreds have already signed up, especially women who see your journey as inspiration." Warmth flooded my chest, profound gratitude swelling deeply. "That's wonderful, Zoe. It's exactly what I'd hoped for." She nodded thoughtfully, eyes bright. "It's more than marketing now, Valerie. It's a movement. People resonate deeply with your story. Overcoming family betrayal, building success through authenticity. You're helping others reclaim their narratives too." Her words resonated powerfully. Aurora had always been about authentic storytelling, but now the stories being shared, stories of resilience, empowerment, and self-worth, felt deeply personal, profoundly meaningful. My painful past had transformed into something powerfully positive, inspiring others to define success on their own terms. As Zoe left, my phone buzzed quietly, a familiar yet surprising name appearing: Shelby. Hesitating briefly, I picked up calmly, confident and steady. "Shelby?" Her voice, softer than I'd ever heard, trembled slightly. "Valerie, I'm calling because I've watched what you've done with Aurora. The mentorship program especially. I had no idea your work was so impactful." I listened quietly, allowing space for whatever she needed to say. She continued hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable yet determined. "I realize now how deeply wrong we all were. You built something incredible, something genuine. It makes me question everything we were taught growing up." A small silence stretched between us. Surprisingly comfortable. "Thank you, Shelby," I said gently, sincerely. "That means more than you might think." She sighed softly, her voice fragile yet honest. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you know I see you now. We were wrong, Valerie, all of us." Her sincerity was unmistakable, yet it no longer defined my self-worth. "Thank you for acknowledging that," I replied gently. "I hope you find your own authenticity someday, Shelby. It's worth the struggle." After a brief, tentative farewell, we ended the call. I sat quietly, reflecting deeply. Shelby's words brought unexpected peace. Not because I needed her validation, but because it confirmed something profound. I'd truly reclaimed my family name, entirely on my terms. My authentic success had become undeniable, even to those who'd once dismissed me most cruelly. Later that week, at a community gala celebrating Aurora's mentorship program, the room hummed warmly with genuine connection. Sadie stood proudly beside me, gently nudging my arm. "Look around, Valerie. This is the legacy you built. Real impact, real stories, real people finding strength through your honesty." My eyes swept the joyful crowd, mentors and mentees laughing warmly, exchanging authentic stories of growth, resilience, and hope. My heart swelled deeply, happiness profound and unshakable. Stepping onto the stage, I faced the audience calmly, voice clear and authentic. Tonight symbolizes something deeply personal for me. It's not just about professional success. Aurora Marketing Solutions began quietly, built in the shadows, fueled by the belief that authentic stories deserve to be told. A hush settled, attentive yet warm. Many of you know my personal journey: family betrayal, painful rejection, yet through that darkness emerged clarity, the realization that my worth was never defined by others but entirely by myself. Warm applause rippled gently, deeply supportive. Tonight marks a turning point. Aurora's mentorship program isn't just a business venture, it's a personal mission. To help others reclaim their stories, their names, their identities, entirely on their own terms. The applause grew louder, powerful, affirming. Sadie smiled warmly from the crowd, her pride evident, supportive friends and loyal colleagues surrounding her, my chosen family, authentic and steadfast. Later, mingling warmly among guests, a young woman approached shyly, eyes bright with gratitude. "Valerie, your story changed everything for me. Seeing you reclaim your family name made me believe I can redefine mine too." Emotion filled me completely, deeply humbled. "You can," I assured her softly, confidently. "Your story is yours alone, never let anyone else write it." As the evening ended, driving home through quiet, peaceful streets, satisfaction settled deeply within me. My parents, Shelby, Mason, they'd wanted my downfall, yet their betrayal had become the catalyst for my greatest strength. Aurora Marketing Solutions thrived openly, unapologetically, and my family name was now synonymous with authenticity, integrity, and genuine empowerment. My boundaries were solid, my chosen family steadfast, my impact undeniably real. Reclaiming my legacy had never been about revenge, it had always been about redefining success on my own authentic terms. Finally home, settling into quiet solitude, I reflected warmly, profoundly grateful. My painful past had transformed into powerful purpose. My quiet rebellion now celebrated publicly, authentically mine. Tonight I knew deeply, my legacy was secure. Not because of external validation, but because I'd finally reclaimed my name, my story, my self-worth, entirely on my own terms. The gentle warmth of morning sunlight filtered softly through my bedroom window, marking precisely 1 year since the night my world fractured and rebuilt itself entirely. 1 year since betrayal had shattered illusions I hadn't known I held. 1 year since I began fully reclaiming myself. I moved slowly, thoughtfully, pouring coffee into my favorite mug, savoring the quiet ritual. My home now felt profoundly peaceful, entirely mine. A sanctuary shaped carefully by newfound boundaries and genuine self-worth. My solitude had transformed from painful loneliness into comforting independence, a powerful shift I hadn't anticipated but deeply cherished. Sitting comfortably on my living room sofa, I reflected gently, thoughtfully, allowing memories to surface softly without bitterness. Shelby's manipulative betrayal, Mason's weakness, my parents' obsession with appearances, all painful, yet ultimately freeing. Their actions had hurt deeply, yet in that hurt I'd discovered resilience, clarity, and an unwavering understanding of my intrinsic value. Aurora Marketing Solutions, once quietly hidden, now stood proudly at the forefront of authenticity and genuine storytelling. Our mentorship program thrived, empowering countless individuals, redefining success beyond superficial validation. My chosen family had become steadfast anchors, Sadie, Georgia, Zoe, each representing unwavering support, authentic connection, and genuine love. A soft buzz drew me gently from contemplation, Zoe's cheerful message lighting up my screen. "Happy 1-year anniversary, Valerie. You've built something extraordinary. We're all proud to be part of your journey." Warmth flooded through me, profound gratitude swelling deeply. My true legacy wasn't merely professional, it was deeply personal, grounded firmly in authenticity, honesty, and genuine human connection. My phone buzzed softly again, a simple message from Sadie. "Thinking of you today. You've inspired us all, Valerie. Here's to a year of incredible strength." Smiling gently, I replied warmly, genuinely, "Couldn't have done it without you, Sadie. You've always been my true family." Putting down my phone, I rose thoughtfully, stepping toward the mirror, facing my reflection clearly, calmly. The woman looking back felt profoundly different from the one who had once desperately sought validation. This Valerie was powerful, resilient, authentically confident, shaped gently but fiercely by trials, triumphs, and quiet, undeniable strength. My reflection spoke not of revenge or bitterness, but of peace, of true self-validation, carefully earned. The peace wasn't fragile, dependent on external approval. It was rooted deeply within me, unshakable and profoundly comforting. Tonight, Aurora would host a public anniversary gala, no longer hidden, quietly celebrated in shadows, instead proudly, openly recognized. Yet even this public acknowledgement paled compared to the quiet satisfaction I felt privately, simply knowing my worth beyond question. Throughout the day, calls and messages poured in, clients, colleagues, mentors, friends, all affirming Aurora's impact, yet even more profoundly, affirming my own authentic journey. Each kind word, each genuine story shared felt deeply personal, powerfully meaningful. As evening approached, preparing calmly for the gala, my phone buzzed softly one final time. Unexpectedly, my mother's number appearing hesitantly on the screen. Surprised yet composed, I answered gently, steady. "Valerie?" Judith's voice was hesitant, cautious. "I hope it's all right to call today. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you." Her words, quiet yet profound, settled softly. I smiled gently, grateful but clear. "Thank you, Mother, that means a lot." A quiet pause stretched warmly. "You built something remarkable," she continued softly, vulnerability evident. "You've inspired people, including me. I wish we'd understood sooner." Her sincerity touched me deeply, not because it provided validation, but because it signaled her journey toward understanding. "Thank you," I repeated gently. It took me a long time to see my own value clearly too. After a brief, comfortable silence, we exchanged gentle goodbyes, hanging up softly. I exhaled deeply, the unexpected exchange reaffirming something profoundly true. Self-validation mattered infinitely more than external approval, yet genuine reconciliation was also a gift. Quiet, meaningful, healing. At the gala later, surrounded warmly by colleagues, friends, mentees, and supporters, I stepped confidently onto the stage, calm yet powerful, addressing the attentive audience gently but clearly. This past year taught me something profoundly important. Success isn't defined by external validation or superficial approval. It's about authenticity, integrity, and genuine connection. Warm applause filled the room, affirming yet gentle. Aurora Marketing Solutions isn't simply a business, it's a deeply personal mission to empower, uplift, and redefine success on our own terms. The room filled warmly with applause again, genuine emotion swelling gently within me. Sadie, Georgia, and Zoe smiled warmly from the crowd. My steadfast anchors, genuine chosen family. As the evening ended, returning quietly home, I reflected deeply, gratitude profound. 1 year ago, betrayal had shattered illusions, but from those ruins emerged clarity, authenticity, genuine strength. My journey wasn't about revenge, it was always about reclaiming myself, redefining success authentically, unapologetically. Settling comfortably into bed, peaceful and content, I knew deeply my story wasn't about external validation, it was about intrinsic worth, quiet yet undeniable, entirely my own. Have you ever felt trapped by others' expectations, fighting for validation you never needed? My journey taught me that true strength comes from defining success on our own terms, independent from others' approval. I'd love to hear your stories, share them in the comments below. If my journey resonated, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs the reminder that it's okay to create your own path. Your worth isn't defined by anyone else's acceptance, it comes from within. Remember, authenticity is your greatest strength. Ask yourself, whose expectations are you living by? Reflect deeply, and when you're ready, share your story. Because your story matters.